The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Commander Arya Chen entered, her worn Earth Defense Force uniform a stark contrast to the luminescent robes and crystalline armor of the alien delegates. At 23 standard years, she was the youngest human ever to stand before the Council, and the whispers that followed her entrance made it clear she was unwelcome. "The child soldier," hissed Ambassador Vexthor, his multiple eye stalks focusing on her with undisguised contempt. "Earth sends us this to negotiate their surrender?" Counselor Zephaniah, a being of pure energy contained within a transparent vessel, flickered with what might have been amusement. How desperate humanity has become. They send their young to die for a lost cause. Arya stood at attention, her spine straight despite the exhaustion that threatened to buckle her knees. She had not slept in 48 hours, having commanded the defense of Luna Station against impossible odds. Her uniform still bore scorch marks from the battle, and a thin line of dried blood traced along her temple where shrapnel had grazed her. "I'm not here to surrender," Arya said, her voice steady and clear in the translation matrix. "I'm here to accept yours." The chamber erupted in what could only be described as laughter, a cacophony of clicks, chirps, and resonating frequencies that human ears were never meant to process. The translation matrix struggled to keep up with the overlapping mockery. "Delusional," proclaimed High General Krath, his massive form towering over the assembly. The insectoid warrior had led the coalition fleet that had ravaged Earth's outer colonies for 6 months. "Your species clings to survival by a thread. Your fleets are scattered, your worlds burn, and you speak of our surrender?" Arya reached into her jacket and produced a small data crystal, placing it on the podium before her. 3 hours ago, the Vornkai Empire's first fleet entered Earth's solar system. They came with 12,000 warships expecting to finish what you started. "We know," Vexthor interjected. "We invited them. The Vornkai will ensure humanity's complete extinction. You have hours left, girl." "Not days." "Had," Arya corrected. Past tense. The Vornkai had 12,000 ships. For the first time, uncertainty rippled through the chamber. Counselor Zephaniah's form pulsed erratically. "Explain yourself." Arya activated the crystal. Holographic projections filled the chamber, showing real-time footage from the battle that had concluded mere hours ago. The Council watched in growing horror as the massive Vornkai armada engaged what appeared to be a single human vessel, a destroyer-class ship, barely 300 meters long. "The EDF Indomitable," Arya narrated, her voice taking on a quality that made even the most ancient delegates lean forward. "Commanded by Captain Sarah Mitchell. She's 62 years old. A grandmother. 20 years ago, the Council rejected her application to join the Galactic Exploratory Guild because humans were deemed too fragile for deep space." The footage showed the Indomitable weaving through the Vornkai formation with impossible precision, its weapons tearing through shields that had been thought impenetrable. But it was not fighting alone. As the Council watched, thousands of small craft emerged from Earth's moon, mining ships, cargo haulers, personal shuttles, all modified with weapons that seemed to violate known physics. "When you scorned us," Arya continued, "when you laughed at our primitive technology and our soft bodies, you made a critical error. You assumed we would play by your rules." High General Krath's mandibles clicked nervously. "This footage is fabricated. The Vornkai cannot be—" "Contact Vornkai Command," Arya interrupted. "Or what's left of it. Their War Master is currently broadcasting his unconditional surrender from an escape pod. He's requesting asylum on Earth, actually. Says he'd rather face human mercy than return home in defeat." The chamber fell into stunned silence as delegates frantically accessed their communication networks, confirming what they desperately hoped was impossible. The Vornkai Empire, the most feared military power in 3 sectors, had been annihilated by what they considered a backwater species. How? Counselor Zephaniah's voice was barely a whisper in the translation matrix. Arya's expression remained neutral, but something fierce burned in her eyes. "You've studied us for decades. You cataloged our weaknesses, our emotional bonds, our irrational attachment to abstract concepts like honor and freedom, our refusal to accept defeat even when logic demands it. You saw these things as flaws." She stepped forward, and several delegates instinctively recoiled. "But you never understood what these flaws make us capable of." "Captain Mitchell? She volunteered for a suicide mission because her granddaughter lives on Earth. Every person in our fleet, Every civilian in those converted mining ships, they fought not because they were ordered to, but because they chose to. Because humans will die before we kneel. The holographic display shifted, showing not just the destruction of the Vornkai fleet, but the aftermath. Human ships were already beginning rescue operations, pulling Vornkai survivors from wreckage, administering medical aid to the same warriors who had come to exterminate them. Your species fight for territory and resources, Arya said. You negotiate from positions of strength and abandon your allies when the cost grows too high. Humans, we fight for each other. We fight for ideals you can't quantify. And when you tell us something is impossible, we don't hear a limitation. We hear a challenge. Ambassador Vexthor's eye stalks drooped. What do you want from us? Recognition, Arya replied simply. A seat at this council, not as subordinates or junior partners, but as equals, and an immediate ceasefire. Every coalition ship withdraws from human space within 24 hours, or will demonstrate that the Vornkai's fate was not luck. High General Krath studied the young human before him, seeing her now with new understanding. The scorch marks on her uniform were not signs of defeat but badges of survival. The exhaustion in her eyes was not weakness but the cost of victory. You would have made a fine warrior in my hive, he said, which was the highest compliment his species could offer. Arya nodded curtly. I'll take that as a yes vote. As the council convened to formalize humanity's ascension, Counselor Zephaniah approached Arya privately. We underestimated you. We won't make that mistake again. Good, Arya replied, allowing herself a small smile. Because next time you threaten Earth, I won't be asking nicely. The girl in the Scorned uniform left the chamber not as a supplicant, but as the representative of a species that had just rewritten the rules of galactic power. Behind her, the council members who had mocked her presence now whispered her name with something they rarely felt. Respect, earned not through technology or numbers, but through the indomitable human spirit that refused to break. And across the galaxy, the Vornkai War Master's message played on repeat. A warning to any who might challenge humanity. They do not fight like us. They fight like demons, and they show mercy when we would show none. Fear them not for their weapons, but for what they represent. A species that grows stronger the harder you push them down. The era of humanity's isolation had ended. The age of humanity's ascendance had begun,